The fall market is well on their way, and everybody has been waiting for fall market 2025 to see somewhat of resurgence since the summer was relatively slow, especially in the month of August. We did get some positive data in July that sales were up, but we saw that fall off in August, as we usually do, seasonality in Toronto real estate. Let's take a look at what exactly has been happening the first 2 weeks of September, the start of the fall market. And in fact, it did start on September the 2nd this year officially. Usually it starts a week later, but Labor Day was on September the 1st, so we started basically right after. This is a reflection of the transactions so far in 2025. If we look back at January 2025, we saw a value of 1,433 transactions. As we went up through the spring market, we saw that number get almost as high here as 25 or 2,400 sales. So 2,358 is what we saw in May, 2,386 what we saw in June, and then as we look at July, 2,200, which of course was up from last year, but we saw that drop off quite a bit here in August, 1,787 compared to 2,200 in July. But year over year, that was up 2.8%. Still relatively slow overall compared to previous August, but it was up year over year. That being said, if we look at where things are at the first 2 weeks of September, and this going all the way to September the 16th, 2025. So this would clock in any transaction in the city of Toronto that has converted to sale. So this does not count anything that's been sold conditionally, which we do have a pretty good amount of sold conditionallys here on the market currently. It doesn't account anything other than something that has actually officially been clocked in as a sale and that the data has been reported to TREB. So not only has it been updated on TREB, I do believe there's an element where the paperwork also has to get sent in to the brokerages and get it fully over the finish line. So that's where we will see this number change, of course, as we go through the rest of the month. And right now we're sitting at 722 sales in the first 2 weeks of September 2025. So essentially that's about 350 sales per week because the week actually started on September the 2nd as we started that spring market as discussed. We're currently sitting at 63% less sales than all of September of 2024. That is a big asterisk because as mentioned, anything that's been sold conditionally has not clocked in yet. Anything that has not hit the market yet and sold in September also doesn't count. But we have seen some traction for some properties. And in fact, I actually saw 10 offers on a property this week. And that was a pretty special property. It was definitely priced well below market value, and we're still waiting to get the update on what that sold for. However, it was 10 offers on offer night. We could take this one step further. So we just took a look at the sales, and this is all the data we could take a look at here. I'm going to click on the number of active listings and see how they've been transpiring here in September. So even though sales are technically down year over year, at least for the month, but we haven't clocked in the full month. In September so far, we have seen the value of active listings up by almost 1,100 active listings compared to the month of August. And that's where we see 11,269 versus the 10,124. So that's actually up 11% month over month from August now into halfway through September. And this also doesn't calculate the full month of September, just what's come to market in the first 2 weeks. So we've seen almost 1,100 listings come to market throughout the first 2 weeks of September. Year over year, that's up 10% compared to last year. So last year there was 10,242 active listings in the month of September. This year we're already at 11,269. Now, if we take a look at the average price, and this will tell us what we've been seeing here in the month of September so far, and it may surprise you a little bit. Prices are actually up from August, which was at 1,017,000 to 1,054,000. So we've seen about a $40,000 increase in price in the first 2 weeks of September compared to where things were in August. That being said, we're also ahead of July, but not quite where things were in June. And that's pretty normal, as in September this month, we've definitely been seeing better properties come to market. And some of those detached properties, which will inevitably bring the pricing up, have just been launched here in the last 2 weeks of September, and they have been selling for pretty solid pricing for 2025. So that'll remain to be seen as we trek through the rest of the month. Are we going to see more of the higher end product or the detached product that people will compete for? And as mentioned, we did see 10 offers on a detached house this week, and I've actually been seeing it as we've gone on here through September. My buyers have been looking for product through June, July, and August, which they haven't really finally found what they're looking for. And now we're starting to see those products come to market for the first time in months here in the month of September. The last data point we're going to look at is months of inventory for the city of Toronto proper. And this is always a number that we are watching to see how the absorption rate is. So we take the active listings, we divide it by sales, and we get a months of inventory. Anything below 2 months of inventory is a seller's market. Anything basically between 2 and 5 months of inventory is balanced. Anything at 5 months or above is a buyer's market. In September so far, we are sitting at a 7 months of inventory, but keep in mind those sale conditionalities and the properties that have sold have not all clocked in here through September. And this makes sense, as we said that there's basically 11,000 active listings and 700 sales so far. And comparatively to the rest of the year, where we've been hovering around 5 months of inventory, so far in September for the first 2 weeks, we're at around 7. And that will inevitably change here as we start to get more sales clock in. Through the rest of the month, we will get some more active listings, but I'm not sure if they will outpace how the sales are turning over and probably bring us somewhere around that 5 months of inventory once the numbers get clocked in at the end of the month. Those are your September numbers so far, 2 weeks into the fall market. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below on what you think. Is this what you expected? And if you ever want to book in a call to discuss your plans for Toronto real estate, I'd be happy to help. You can click on that first link down below or scan the QR code. I'm Michael Ouzas. Thanks for watching.